Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao, and I love talking to colleagues of mine. You know, I bring a lot of industry leaders. I bring a lot of marketing people in here to help you grow your practice. Well, today I'm going to bring a dentist on, and we're going to have a nice chat for about 45 minutes. She's based in the San Diego area. She's actually a graduate of Tufts, where I went to school. We've spoken a number of times over the years. She's visible on social, which is great. So she's got her name out there. Today's guest is Nicole Vane. Thank you, Nicole, for talking with me today. I'm excited for our chat. There's a lot of things we want to talk about today. Just so the listeners and viewers know, we're recording in October. This is probably, and I didn't tell Nicole this is probably going to be released in January of 2022. This is the first episode I'm recording since I sold my practice. So for the listeners and viewers, I am now an associate in my practice. I built it for 15 years, and then on October 1st, I became the associate. So there'll be some different things I'm going to be able to talk about now that I'm on the other side of things. So I was an associate for 5 years, bought a practice 15 years ago, and now I'm the associate again, probably for another 18 to 20 months, and then I will clinically retire from dentistry. But I just want to let everybody know that. Nicole, thank you for joining me, and welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, as I mentioned, you are vocal on social, which I love. You do put it out there. You do put out the good, the bad, and the ugly of things that go on in your career. So why don't you, for those that happen to, I say live under a rock and don't know who you are, but yet listen to it, why don't you kind of give a little bit about your background, how you ended up where you are, a little bit about, your practice, a little bit about, I know you just basically moved to a new location. So kind of give the background about Nicole.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not an industry leader, but what you said is I'm very active on social. I pride myself on being one of the few really honest people. There's a lot of people who want to put themselves out there and only show the good. And I am all about asking the questions that I know everyone goes through. I know it's not just me, but a lot of people just don't want to say anything. I think one of the downsides of dentistry is we're a lot of similar personality types. We're competitive. This is what gets us to where we are. We're all super independent. We want to be entrepreneurs, but a lot of us don't want to look at a lot of our failures whether it be in leadership, business ownership, management. We want to be seen as pillars of our community and these great dentists. And I just think that I love the honesty when we can all sit and be like, oh my God, that happened to me. Even like when I come time to, if I did sell and I was going to be an associate again, I'd call you right up and be like, what's that like? How'd you do it? So my story, I went to Tufts. I graduated in 2003. I always wanted to work with someone. I didn't want to run a business. Didn't think I'd be good at it. A lot of that comes from my parents, who I was just very trained. They're government workers. Like, you have a steady paycheck, you get benefits. Why would you want to do something where you take on that much debt? So they celebrated that I want to be a dentist, but the other stuff, they're like, why would you want to do that? Open a practice, take on that debt. So I just always worked for someone, thought I was going to buy them out. Had 2 failed dangling carrot associateships where I worked myself up to full time, was there several years, and they never had any intention of selling to me. And both ended very badly. So I went looking for another opportunity again, and seemed on that same path again, to have someone who wanted to bring me on just to help me build a side of the business and then not keep any of it. So I started looking for practices. I found what's called, essentially it was a startup. It's called a failed restart. I had a practice with no patients, old equipment. So this doctor had been doing, in her 10 years of practice, producing less than $200,000 annually after 10 years of practice. Yeah. So the bank doesn't want to give you money if you get that. So I essentially just bought the space. I had a lot of patients that surprisingly followed me. So even though it was a startup, I started with 2 ops. I grew it to 5 within 2 years. And I stayed there for 7 years at that space. And I was sharing with you earlier, I had 2 floods, one in 2019 and one in 2020. My lease was up. My insurance told me they were going to drop me. So I planned a move and I did a build out. And I'm at my new location. I was going to fit 8 ops. I ended up doing 6, and the opportunity to add some more if I wanted to. And now I have my dream practice where hopefully no floods and no construction for 20 years, because I went through way too much. I had a construction project every year before. But essentially I had to figure out like building my brand and who I was, and turn this little practice that I bought into successful practice. And it's all about just creating what was my vision. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I think that part of the way you and I connected at first was I built the first part of it just based on good reviews from patients. We got a couple hundred the first year. And that was our main referral source. I actually did no marketing other than having Yelp and Google have people refer to us. So from there, I got really focused on my website, became good friends with my web guy who's a patient. And I started just content building with photos and videos. And I don't mind doing videos. I actually enjoy doing short little video. I guess you'd call it vlogs. And found a lot of success on that. So he's built into the website a ton of content with YouTube channels and whatnot, where it's all live. And now, this many years in, the majority of my patients come in because of my videos.
So I love a couple of things you said, and I wanted you to go, and I didn't want to interrupt, but I love a couple of things you said. Well, number one, real quick, we actually have something in common. Okay. Yes, we did go to Tufts.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So that's one thing. I graduated in '99, so I think we crossed over 1 year. I was a fourth year. You were a first year then.
And you were with Craig Spodak in that class, right?
Craig was a year. He was in '98, so he was a year ahead of me. So, and he's in Delray Beach, so he's not that far from me here. Actually, I referred my sister-in-law and brother-in-law to his practice because they're in Delray Beach too. So they just went to him last week for the first time, or 2 weeks ago. But I went through 2 floods as well. So, Yep. So
you know how awful it is.
Oh, it's terrible. One actually happened in December of 2018, the day before I was leaving for Aruba for the end of the year. So they had the flood, and I literally had a flight to Aruba the next day. It shut us down for 4 months. It was shut down shut us down on the lower level. So I had a 2-level office, upper level and lower level. I was in the upstairs, my hygienist in my office, my lab, everything was downstairs. So a bi-level office. And I owned the building. And it was both floods were caused by a neighbor of mine, and over putting crap into the sewage basically. And it was a sewage backup that caused the flood. So I went through 2 of those as well. Luckily, my insurance didn't drop me, but my insurance rates went skyrocketing, and it became ridiculous, honestly, to be honest with you. So, but yes, we went through 2 floods as well. But I love the couple of things you said. So number one is that you spent no money on marketing except building your reviews. And our first conversation, I don't know if you remember, was when you were comparing Swell to Bird Eye. That was the first time we had spoken. Yeah. You had reached out.
And I remember my son was screaming in the background because I was on a walk with him. And
you were apologizing, yes. So that was our first conversation, yes. was comparing Swell to Bird Eye. But you built it on reviews, which I love, and that's what I think everybody needs to be doing out there. You also mentioned the word that you built content on your website. And I'm a firm believer that content is king out there. And the more content you have, the better you're going to perform online. So that's huge. Okay. So for people listening, reviews are key, but content is key as well. The more content, the higher you rank. The more content you have on the website, the higher you're going to rank for the keywords that you want to rank for. The more patients you're going to have that are going to come in because you've got the credibility from the reviews. Okay. And then the other thing that you mentioned, which I love, is that you love doing videos. Okay. And you mentioned the word vlogging. Most dentists that create videos, look, they're into TikTok and all these other things. But if you can create content using videos, and we call it vlogging now, and put those on the website, you create this almost like funnel that you have that will bring people in, and you've got the credibility already. So that is an amazing form of content, is video blogging. So I give you a lot of credit because you become comfortable doing it.
Well, even like I did a video on how to re-cement your temporary. I did it pre-COVID. And during COVID, all these patients and other dentists were like thanking me for this short video because they're Googling what to do, and everyone shut down. And a lot of people watched that video, which I think is pretty random, you know? But when I met with my web guy, I told you we became friends. He was one of my first patients at the new office who transferred from the old doctor. And he's like, hey, can we trade? And I was like, no, like, I don't want to trade with you. I just built my website. I literally just spent $5,000 on a website, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're a startup and I had no budget, he showed me though that how important content was. He explained the way SEO works. And he also showed me, one of the things the other guy completely missed was one of my pages that the other guy built formatted right on your cell phone. So nothing formatted clean. I mean, we're talking 2014. He's like, look, you have no call to action button. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, you want it to format quickly, load quickly, and be able to click call at any time. So if someone engages for 30 seconds, they see something they like. It could just be that you're close to their house. Could be whatever. You want to have a call to action where they can call right away. So he taught me a lot on stuff like that. And I was able to do a lot on my own. And I started calling when I wanted my first video produced. And like people wanted for a 1-minute video, the starting cost was over $5,000. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, there's editing, whatever. I said, no, I'm pretty good on doing things in one take. You don't need to airbrush me. I mean, if I look weird, I look weird. You know, it's fine. And so I called someone else. It was still a lot. And I ended up finding a guy in my, it was in BNI. And he came in and he did a bunch of them and just charged me like $50 an hour for editing. But all he did was bring in his SLR camera and put a microphone in my pocket. And so they were pretty good. They weren't expensive. I literally shot like 16 videos for like $1,200. And then they're my content. I owned them outright. And then my web guy back-ended it and put it on YouTube, on my website. He properly tagged it so Google sees it as good content. Those are all things that if you don't know how to do it, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Maybe you should hire someone. There's companies that do this for a reason. But the idea of content being king, it's amazing how many people have reached out to me like, oh, how'd you get a successful startup or whatever? And they want to like, oh, don't spend more than $1,000. They're at ADA, they have these template websites and everyone has the same pictures and the same everything. So I also went to a course, I don't know how many years ago because I'm so old now, but they said something that really resonated with me. And when you're talking about building a brand and you're talking about building it on reviews, it's people want to get to know you. So when you do a content site and you use stock images, it doesn't matter if you're beautiful, ugly, tall, whatever, people want to know who they're going to see. And they want to know something about you. They want it to feel something familiar. So when everyone has like the bio or the stock photo and it's super outdated too, it's like their dental school picture from 20 years ago and they're in the coat, their arms are crossed. It's like, if you're bald, look bald. Like you don't need to put a picture of you, whatever. Like it should be you, just like Match.com or whatever. People want to know who they're going to be matched with. And so I get so many compliments on it. You walk in and I have pictures of my son and I. My son at the time the picture was taken was 3. And we're both in matching white coats and we're smiling. And then there's a bunch of pictures of him as a baby. There's pictures of me. That they're on a hidden shelf. It looks like it's like in a living room. But people want to see that. They want to see that you're a real person who's nice. And then they'll correlate the rest with the reviews. And then they'll see you on your YouTube video. And what you said is, it's true. They come in already bought in, like they chose you. And so it's really been effective in building a brand in terms of just getting people in. And a lot of times they'll act like I have a CEREC. Like, how come no one else has this technology? Like in San Diego, we literally have like 700 CEREC users.
But nobody talks about it.
No, and I have someone driving from LA to come to my office like over 2.5 hours because they saw my video and they're like, oh, you do one-day dentistry. Oh, like I have friends that are like literally like famous with CEREC and they're here in the area and they could have gone to them. I would be like, oh, go to them. They're amazing. but they just don't have the content that's driving people to their website. And I think that's a really important piece for people to see. They also will say, well, what am I going to talk about on video? I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And it's their website. You'll see the parallels. Their website will then be a stock picture of a bridge. And it's like a bridge is two caps holding a fake cat tooth. And it's like, again, all stock images. If you explain it, however you want to explain it, whatever your style is, it's nice because people are getting to see you. And then there's going to be a part that resonates with them about that. So I think that for me, it's been great. I want to be the next Dr. Pimple Popper because I love doing nasty like surgeries and stuff. And I would love to I want to get the loop cam so like people can watch some of the cool
watch
stuff.
What you're doing. Watch what you're doing. Yeah.
And narrate it in a great way, in a humorous way.
There's definitely an aura for that type of look. People have always been turned off by some of that stuff, but there's definitely people who want to see that. And it goes to show you because of the fascination with Dr. Pimple Popper and all these other shows that have really done well on TV. So, as you're talking, I'm looking at some stuff. So you mentioned, the videos that you're doing. So I was an early adopter of YouTube videos. So I have videos on YouTube that go back 13 years now, believe it or not. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
So I have 180 videos on my YouTube channel. Okay. Now I get a lot of patients who mention about crack tooth syndrome and some of these other things. So I did a video on crack tooth syndrome that has now been viewed 15,000 times on YouTube. I have a video on, there's another one that's viewed 7,000 times. So this is really powerful stuff. So my YouTube channel is just Dr. Len Tao for people who want to go check it out, Dr. Len Tao. And you can see all the videos I've done over the years. But there definitely is, some of them only been viewed 10 times, but there's a couple things that get picked up by YouTube, and then people find it, and it goes, I don't want to say viral, 15,000 or 17,000 views. To me, it's not viral. But people who are looking online will find it, and that's why they come in your office, because they see you, and it gives you that credibility. So yeah. I truly understand the value of videos, and I think that is where the future in dentistry is. There are lots of companies out there who will do videos for you. You just have to make yourself comfortable in doing it, and that's the missing part of the websites. For websites, the missing part, in my opinion, is video content.
Yeah, and I think you have to know. I spent a lot of this past year trying to work on what's my vision, especially when I was trying to move. I went through some coaching for the office just to get the culture and everything to support having a fee-for-service office. And part of what was my vision are what are my passion points, and does the team believe in it and follow my vision, and is that infused into our practice, right? So you can't have and purport to be so thorough and caring and then be like, oh, but I have to do now 30-minute cleanings because that's what their insurance pays. People are going to see the difference and the disconnect, and it's going to come off as insincere if you aren't walking the walk. So my only point in that is that with vision, one of my friends just hired a marketing company, and in talking to her, she's spending a ton of money right now. Her practice is, quote, failing. She has reached a point after 5 years where she can't get past 800 patients. She said her hygiene schedule is totally open. She's 5 miles from me. Amazing doctor. So to me, her issue is patient attrition. They have no recare system. She swears they do, but no one's being reappointed because you wouldn't have that many hygiene openings and the lack of new patients. She's like, it's because we're not marketing. I was like, no, that's not why. And she's not ready to hear it, but she's an amazing dentist. And she's like, well, here's my solution. I'm going to spend $5,000 a month on marketing. I'm like, $5,000 a month? Yeah, we need new patients. So I'm following her, and all of her content that this guy's doing, she's letting them drive the process, is on how she's a yogi. So it's all these pictures of her doing yoga poses. And I'm like, you could connect with a yogi, but that's not going to have any correlation with who you are as a dentist. She is kind and calm, and I think that's what she's trying to convey. But she's also a great cosmetic dentist. I'm like, where are your before and afters? Where are your testimonial videos? And the testimonial videos can't all be about how nice she is, because they're all of the ones she pushes out are, she's so kind and patient. That doesn't say shit. I'm sorry. It's like no one wants to go to a mean doctor,
No.
but they want to go to a doctor that they're like, if you're going to rip my teeth out or give me implants, you freaking know what you're doing. And I can tell because I saw your video. And what's interesting with all this content stuff, because I am active on social, it's a bit of a problem, but I look at this stuff and it's stuff that I would never think, like the bloody tooth guy, seeing people seeding veneers, like Teja Patel does that all of the time, and Dr. Yazdan. Why etching and bonding and but people, the perception of the patient is someone walked in with these nubs of teeth and look at the beautiful porcelain they created. Like we all know that's different, but his seeding the veneers thing, it got like 2 million views of a short video from a GoPro camera off the overhead light. And I'm like, that works? And then a bunch of the dancing stuff, like we're not all Dr. Constantine. He is a freaking good looking guy who can dance. I didn't even try that. I'm like, no one's going to want to see me TikTok doing a dance. So my lane is talk about surgeries or cool procedures, and it works for me. But I do think there's so much to the video content and what brand you're putting out there that people want to see. And I think it really ties into the raving patient aspect. So the other thing of them getting to know me is I still do handwritten cards at night to welcome the new patients to the practice. And I do follow-up calls with patients after they have a invasive procedure, just to, to see how they're doing, give out my cell phone number. No one ever calls.
Nope.
Maybe they'll text, hey, is this normal? Yeah, that's normal. Oh, thank you so much for caring. But those are the things that build loyalty.
What it sounds like to me is that you wanted to be different than the other doctors in the area, and you use these things that you're doing to differentiate your practice. So I give a workshop, which you took, called The Art of the Sale. And one of the things that I ask during that course, in the beginning of the course, is how do you differentiate how are you different than your neighbor? And I say it's not clinical based. So, they say I have a CEREC machine or I have this. I'm like, not, and I tell them now, the answer is not clinical. I don't want the answer to be clinical. Yeah. How do you differentiate yourself? Well, I have really good customer service. So, you've actually been very specific now in what you do. You write handwritten notes. You call them after hours. You give them your cell phone. Now, guys, as you're listening to this, that is the exact specific example of what I'm talking about when it comes to differentiating your practice from someone else in your area. Okay.
But when I took your class, just so you know, now versus then, you have to have team members that resonate with that same message.
Yep.
So when I took your class, there was one member who's still with me who's done very well. She's the best treatment coordinator I've ever had. We couldn't be more different personality-wise. She's very quiet, very reserved. I'm very yay, out there. But if they're not explaining treatment the same way as you, they're not value building on the same key points, they're not interested in how'd you hear about our office, what brought you in today, what are your concerns, then your brand is diluted and it doesn't lead to closing treatment or keeping the patient.
Of course. I agree 100% with you. But the problem is that some dentists don't realize that they have to differentiate themselves, because that's the only way they're going to really attract the new patients to their office. So they have to be different. And I that's what I did. I used to go when I wasn't busy doing other things in my career. I used to go with the oral surgeon or go to the oral surgeon's office to be with the patient when they had their consults. I would leave my office, go there. That would help seal the deal, and they would have these $25,000, $30,000 treatment plans closed because I would do that. I would go there for their surgeries, to be there to adjust their denture, so they didn't have to come back to my office afterwards to have their denture adjusted. These were things that I chose to do that nobody did back then. I mean, this is 15 years ago, 14 years ago. So I just think when people are listening to this, you have to decide what is going to make you different than someone else to help attract and tie into everything we just talked about. Because yes, you can have all the great reviews in the world. You can have videos. You can market yourself great. You can spend tons of money marketing yourself. But if you don't differentiate yourself, you're still not going to have the patients coming into the office.
No, or retain them. Because my friend that I was talking about, I told her, I said, have you ever phone call recorded? And I didn't for years. And then I did. And it's crazy what you hear people say on the phone. Your own team. And I train everyone when they're onboarded, whatever. People are like, yeah. And that's the problem right now, especially with turnover in the front, whatever, is you're going to hire for experience, or you'll hire someone from the ground up. I've done that several times over now. And if you just throw them in there and you're like, oh, they know how to make an appointment, whatever. Like, if you're not listening, you would be shocked at the level of customer service and how many bad reviews you can get because someone wasn't listening. They're like, or they're not compassionate when they call. They're not edifying the doctor. Like Mark Costas always talks about the edification, like, oh, you're in the right place. Oh my God, we're so glad you called. Those subtleties across the board, across your team members, are really important if you're creating a brand that's going to make you different. And so it's just a lot that ties in together, especially if you want to go out our network, which I did this year. Everyone's like, so what do you do? And it's like, no, you have to be different. You have to offer something extra if it's going to make them want to stay. And, we all have gone through hygiene turnover. I am so proud of our hygiene team, but even when I was going through that, I wasn't willing to have a temp that was rough, who didn't explain treatment, that wasn't nice, just because I needed them to get their teeth clean, because it doesn't support the type of visit that I wanted them to have. And to me, I would rather not have them booked out than have someone in there who's bad and then not have them reschedule or look for another dentist, because it was not good customer service.
No, and I agree 100% with that. I want to spend a few minutes now, because you made a very important, you brought it up anyway. I was going to segue in there. It was going out of network. So I bought a practice, as I said, 15 years ago, that was completely out of network. Okay. When I brought my first associate in 2017, I had dropped down to 2 days a week then. She decided to go in network with insurance companies. She was concerned that patients would not want to see her. So we were basically in network and out of network in the same practice, which caused all sorts of problems. When she left in 2020, and I brought Dr. Christine Hannen, who is now the owner of the practice, she went completely out of network again. So the time that we were in network, not me particularly, but the practice became in network again, or for the first time, it caused loads of problems, and it was a nightmare. I quickly wanted to as soon as we got in, I wanted to get back out. So you obviously went online and made some interesting comments. You did a video, you put a letter together. And even I told you a couple of days ago, a dentist reached out to me wanting to get that information, because I thought it was very well done. So can you talk to the people listening and viewing about the decision to go out of network? What you obviously knew you needed to do it to survive. I don't want to say survive, but keep the finances where you need to be, knowing where you were in San Diego and stuff. But talk to them about the decision behind that, and what you had to do to get ready for that, because that's a big decision that a lot of dentists are afraid to make, I guess you can say. And I know a lot of them want to do it.
Yeah. So I had wanted to do it for 2 years earlier than I did it. So the first phase one, we dropped MetLife, and we dropped Principal, and we dropped Guardian. And we found out at that time that MetLife pays great out of network. Awesome. Yes, you use it more of their benefits, but they'll pay your fee for the crown, no problem. They pay it quickly. And Blue Cross Blue Shield. Like in California, I'm like, I am not dealing with this. I'm not dealing with what's interesting on this side of things now too. When you're out of network entirely, you don't get any of the upset calls of why didn't they pay for this? You're telling them the same information. They're not going to pay for this. But people think it's because your office didn't bill it right, and you didn't put the right narrative, and you didn't put this. So essentially, I just felt like super worn down for the type of procedures I was trying to do. I bought fancy lasers, and I like using really expensive materials on patients. And I don't want to dialogue with someone over if I can bill their veneer and accept, say someone presented the $550 Delta fee for the veneer. And I'm like, this isn't a covered benefit anyway. No, I'm not doing it for that. My lab bill is that much. So I just got really burnt out on that. And I figured I'd rather be slow, especially after COVID. If I was rebuilding the team, I'd rather work 3 days a week even and get paid more than working full time and running chair to chair. So I just started looking at the numbers, and the only slowdown was getting the right team. It was just, again, I wasn't phone call recording then, but what we did the first phase is I sent a letter for MetLife and whatever, all those other four. And I kind of left everything to my office manager at the time, and she sent the letter, and no one was following up on the metrics. The whole team wasn't trained across the board. So essentially everyone just got the letter and said, oh, you don't take my insurance anymore, so I have to find a new dentist. So we had a huge wave of attrition then, and which is what scares people, right? They're like, oh, see, I knew it. And what's interesting is a lot of them have come back now. So all the people that left in 2018, I've gotten a huge percentage of people reactivating after COVID. They went somewhere else. They didn't like it. Now they like us again, which is great. So that first one, even though I was actually really burned, I got all these people left me. The process wasn't managed well because I wasn't involved. I decided to go slower with Delta and some of the others. And so I started noticing over time, I'm now using practice by numbers again. I was using Dental Intel. I've used Revenue Well, Modento, Yappy, you name it. I've used all of them. But I was using practice by numbers, and I started just tracking all the call volumes, where everyone's coming from, new patients. And I started getting all these cash patients anyway. So I'm like, how am I turning down a cash patient so I can bump them to do a $91 Delta filling and then an $81 surgery? Like, I do not need to take out wisdom teeth for $81. Like, it's not worth my time. And that's why I stopped doing pedo, is like I couldn't afford the time for the reimbursements, and I was getting tired of running chair to chair. So what I did was with Delta is I hired a coach, and she came in, and we spent a lot of time on the phone calls and the training, because what happens with your treatment planning seminar, which I think is awesome. I was stuck in this rut of people that would just, here's your Delta printout. So Delta is going to cover 18 and 19. You're getting crowns, and it's all itemized, build up, this, that. And instead of presenting as a case presentation fee or saying your insurance is going to estimate to pay $1,500 of this $80,000 bill, whatever it is, like I could not untrain that. And so I had to just start from scratch, and COVID was a blessing for that. And it was getting people who are really like, oh, yes, we're an unrestricted provider, not, no, we don't take your insurance. Or, yeah, we can take it, but, I don't know if they're going to pay anything. So I had one girl up front that she at least would tell me when she was rude and hung up on people. But pre-recording, she would be like, this person was rude. They didn't pay for this. And meanwhile, she hadn't presented downgrades or any of that, the payment tables. But someone's like, I wasn't expecting to pay $800 more out of pocket. And she would be like, that's your insurance. It's your problem. And she would hang up on people. So again, you really have to know who's at your front desk if you're going to try and build a brand and try and go out and network, because the front will rightfully feel attacked if the whole team isn't prepared for the type of questions. We have zero issues now. It's just everyone's on the same page. No one's scared to have that conversation. And when you handle it in the right way, people are like, oh, okay, no problem. And now they're super excited about our membership plan. We have so many cash patients that don't have insurance anyway. So why are we fearful about going out of network or saying we're out of network when we're reasonably priced for our area, and they can get a great smoking deal with our membership plan? And some are like, this is way better than my insurance, which only covers one tooth. So can I just do that plan? And next year I'm not going to renew my insurance. So I think all of it just has started to now fit together, and it's just, we're having some of our best months we've ever had. So being on a network.
Right. Being on a network. So how has, and you mentioned part of it. So obviously you're still accepting assignment of benefit for from insurance companies, or you are accepting payment?
We will bill for them. So we spent so much time over the years making really accurate payment tables and whatnot. So we feel like we can really closely estimate like what they're going to get back from the insurance. So they pay us up front. And I do want people to prepay for their appointments, at least a portion, because it totally reduces all the cancellations and stuff we had going on during COVID when people have already something invested in the appointment. And it's just very clear financially too. I don't get anyone showing up like I used to years ago. Like, wait a second, I thought I was getting a filling today, not a crown. Oh, I didn't know I was going to need to pay $385. And now it's like, hell yeah, you already gave us your credit card. We don't have any of those issues anymore. And it leads back to customer service, raving fans. No one feels like they weren't told something now. And it just eliminated all the confusion and muddle. But we don't collect, like on some of them that pay really well upfront, like MetLife, out of network. On some of them, we will wait and they'll send the check to us and we reconcile it that way. So we do bill out of network on a few of them.
Okay. Yeah. So that was, I was wondering, because we've always been out of network, other than when my associate was there for a couple of years, specifically for her. And we've always accepted the assignment of benefit, estimated the patient's payment. And, then we've taken, a credit card authorization for any underpayment by the insurance company. And then we just balance bill the patients for any remaining balance afterwards. But you're getting the majority of your patients to pay in full beforehand or prior to the appointment. And then the insurance is reimbursing them directly is what you're saying.
Yep. And we track all that. So Delta still spends us the check to us, even though they're supposed to send them all to the patient. So we're kind of tracking like the mixture of it because a lot of them will go to the patient, and then we'll track like how much was paid or if anything was written off. We're really still watching all that, so we can really present confidently to patients. Yeah.
Well, the best part about that though is your receivables is probably zero or very close
or
to
almost. It used to be at, what did they say? At least it should be a month of collections is normal, and now we're at like 0.4%.
So guys, listening to that, if you can switch to being out of network, not only being out of network, but from being an in-network provider to going out of network, but then having the patients pay in full and getting them reimbursed directly by the insurance company, that's awesome. So that's really great because she has almost zero receivables at this point.
And I went through years of having great numbers and having times where I'm like, how am I going to make payroll? Like, how am I a $1.8 million practice writing off $400,000 a year in insurance billing? And a lot of it was because of my front not following up, letting claims age to 11 months, resubmitting claims multiple times without the correct information, not checking frequencies on. We still do all that stuff for the patient. We still make sure it's going to be paid. I wouldn't do SRPs with 3mm pockets and no clinical attachment loss charted. I wouldn't do that. We track all that. We don't upsell anyone, and people then can see how much we're working for them. And now if something somehow wasn't covered, we're like, unfortunately, your plan downgraded this to this. And they're literally like, that sucks. Why would my employer choose that? Versus a conversation a year ago where they're like, you never told me that. You should have told me this. Or why should I pay the buildup? Or why should I pay this? Like we don't have any of that anymore. And it's because throughout the team, we're handling it correctly. It's just made dentistry more enjoyable because, we work on, your name of your podcast is Raving Patients. And there's nothing worse than spending so much time and then feeling defeated that they leave a bad review because of a billing issue.
Correct.
You're like, I just gave you gold customer service. I called you on Sunday. I did this, I did that. And now you're pissed at me. I've had patients leave over the years over an uncovered PA for $11. I'm like, drive over here. I didn't know that someone was trying to collect on it, my front desk. I would have written it off. Drive over here. I'll give you 20. Just like, I wouldn't have, it's not that important to me, but all that we did for you is now diluted. So I think even if you're in network, you really need to make sure that your front is handling things appropriately. Because I've had such a slew of bad customer service, rude people.
It's amazing to me to hear the trend change from just a couple of years ago to where you are now. That's an amazing transformation in your practice. But it's also because you built a different culture in your office, and that says a lot about you. The team is very much on board, and if you as the CEO of the business, we were talking about that, is that I loved running the business. I then moved away. I live in Florida now. It's hard for me to run the business. I still will do the dentistry for a couple more years. But you being the CEO put these new things in place So your team follows the rules now, as we say, and you have a much better operation running now. It sounds like you have a much well-oiled machine, and things are just running by itself now. So you can focus on the things to really bring in the patients and make more money. It sounds like.
Yeah. So I started placing implants and doing more complex surgeries this year, and obviously that's all doctor driven. It was like at least 30,000 of equipment that I had to buy, and then I set up a surgery room when I was planning out the new office. So I have 2 surgery ops. That really showcase our equipment too. So patients are like, wow, this is nice. And you're right, building the team. Both my hygienists that were with me a long time that I had taken to CE and stuff pre-COVID, both chose not to return in really bitchy ways. So just saying, for all that I invested in them, our 6-year relationship was ruined because of COVID. Like I created this need to shut down. Nonetheless, like everyone else, I was like, what am I going to do? Like when we were ready to reopen in May, I'm like, I have to hire someone. And I went from I have 10 hygiene days. So when I'm reading all this stuff on Facebook too, everyone's like, this new grad wanted $52 an hour in California. That is what they're being told in school. So, but is it someone you can train to be part of your brand? So one of my new hygienists, so both of them came over, what we aligned with, they sought me out and it was like, wow, we have very similar visions. You don't want to just crank through patients. We want to do this. And both really believed in perio. And I have to say my other 2 didn't. So my perio percentages were below 30%. I'm like, why are you doing a prophy 2? This is 4 quads all day long. Why did you start debriding all this off before you took all the x-rays? Because our mindset was, I only have an hour. So I got to get down to business. And it's like, no, we got to get down to diagnosis. Like this patient needs this. This patient, we shouldn't be having all these conversations about like perio maintenance. Well, they don't cover the other 2. So, okay, well, we'll just do bloody prophies then because he didn't want to stay with the 3-month recall. Like our whole culture is about health and whatever. So our perios percentages went through the roof because I have 2 hygienists that are super passionate about it. They do not overdiagnose, but they really want to make sure the patients are taken care of. And they are more hourly than I was paying before, but they also produce way more because they're not trying to just shove it's not a prophy palace. So I want people to stop being short-sighted and be like, well, Delta only reimburses $80 for the whole visit. Yeah, that's right. And we're a 0 fluoride practice. And when people are like, well, I have to push the fluoride to make up for the difference. No, you really just have to educate the patients, like I don't sell any products either because of money. I sell it because they're like, this is what you need as part of whatever it is, if it's our perio program. And it's just, everyone's very aligned on that. And the numbers follow that when people really believe in what they're doing versus just being in that insurance mindset.
Right. Well, that's a whole different mindset. And you know what, I don't want to get into the argument of why I take insurance versus not. My belief is if you drop insurances and you lose 20% of your patients, you're going to work 20% less and make the same amount of money. And you're obviously making more money then because you're working less. So I have a very different opinion about that. If you drop insurances and you then use the insurance is basically a marketing expense, in my opinion, because you're taking a hit on the money, but you're not spending on marketing to bring the patients in. So again,
yeah, but to that, if you're looking at numbers, I went from a $300,000 to $400,000 a year write-off, okay, and then lags, like where I'm literally like, you need the money because you just did all this treatment, and then I'm waiting 4 months with 2 appeals to get paid, and I'm paying someone to chase this insurance claim for half the fee. So it's a more payroll expense, more everything. But then on top of it, it's just really interesting when you see that investment where it's like, oh, is my time really worth this patient that no shows all the time and their insurance is only going to pay us $50 for the cleaning? Is our time really worth all these exclusions in the plan? And we're saying yes to them, and now we're saying no to the cash patient that could come in as a great emergency that we could get seen that day, that builds loyalty. Like, you really have to shift your focus on what you want, because people believe the insurance is such a driver. And on marketing, now I am marketing. And guess how much I spend per month?
On marketing?
Mm-hmm. So I had a $400,000 a year write-off last year.
So how much you spend on marketing?
So you said it's insurance is our marketing, right? So $400,000 divided by 12 months of the year
is $30,000 plus a month.
Right. So how much do I spend now being fully out of network and being just as busy?
Probably $1,000 a month, not even.
Yeah. No, I pay about $1,500.
Okay. So, I mean, you're spending a lot less money and you're out of network. So,
yeah.
Yep.
So like, where's the write-off worth it?
No, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. No, of course not. But
no.
Again, patients, docs don't have that mentality, and unfortunately. So, one thing I wanted to ask you about, can you talk about your membership program? Because I know that's a big hot topic nowadays. I have one. I was one of the first dentists in the country. My membership plan is 11 years old now. 2010 it was developed. So I've had one for a long time. Patients still renew every single year.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of them. And I hear it a lot from other docs. Can you talk about yours briefly?
Yeah, for sure. So the hang up before was my team. The front desk wasn't tracking it. They thought it was like a bunch of work. They weren't telling patients about it. I would overhear some of their conversations and I'm like, why did you not offer the membership plan? Or why didn't you offer this? Oh, well, they didn't ask me. They were just asking me about their insurance. Or why didn't you do this? So that's a key part again, is I decided to manage it in-house myself. I called all the companies. I called Clear, Dental Membership Direct. I actually called like 4 or 5 of them and I got their pricing. And I'm like, I don't see why we can't do this ourselves. So I did hire a coach, the same one that I used for going and training our team on going out of network, all the verbiage. And she helped me set up our membership plan as a payment table. So it defaults to all the discounts, like products aren't discounted, certain things are. They're 2 cleanings plus whatever. So it's not like we have like a piece of paper where we're like, oh shoot, Len's coming in today. Did he have his second cleaning yet? Is it time to renew? A lot of the podcasts will say that you have to do monthly. Patients don't want to pay up front. And we're like, dude, this whole cash visit's going to cost you more than getting an extra cleaning, 2 exams, the follow-up. The discount on your crown that you need is going to be enough to pay for the plan. And that way it's clean. I've only had twice where someone didn't want to come back, like we weren't a good fit. And they had prepaid for the plan. And then we refunded them back like $100. It wasn't a big deal, but really having our front on board where they really enjoy the plan. We give 2 cleanings. We give a CBCT, any necessary x-rays, comprehensive exam, 2 limiteds or limited in an ER, a periodic, and then you get discount off Invisalign. You get 20% off of some of our crowns, but no discounts on like implants or like veneers or wax ups. Like their like product is not discounted. And we went by changing the team and changing the focus and setting up the payment tables. We added like an extra 250 patients in our first year of doing it last year.
And how much do you charge?
$399.
$399. Okay.
No, $369. $369. Yeah.
Okay.
And then so what worked for me, because I went through all these marketing companies to look at how they were doing it. A lot of people have asked to see, they've personal messaged me to see my trifold. So I sat down with my web guy and we did a trifold, but I thought people would want to see the savings of just the initial, like, even if you just were like, I just want my 2 cleanings and I want whatever's included, they'll save like $1,200 a year on if they needed anything. So putting it side by side, they were able to see the savings, because people don't realize how much they waste on insurance.
No, 100% so. I try to tell them and actually buying it on their own is the biggest waste. They don't realize how much, they don't get that. They think
I've had patients who've searched for a plan and then had 12 and 18-month waiting periods on all major.
Yep.
And major
100%.
included SRPs. And I'm like, and then they have subclasses on prior existing stuff, like, or if you have a missing tooth clause and all this stuff, they're literally, I'm like, what are you even paying for? You're going to be paying cash anyway.
Yep. And they think I'm the one making it up, that it's not worth it. They believe the insurance company, they believe the insurance broker.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to sell you something. I mean, it boggles my mind. I mean, I can write a book on that topic. It's insane. The conversations I have with patients over insurances and what their plan covers and doesn't cover, especially if it's a self-pay plan. That's the biggest waste of money.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this is a dental podcast. It's not a patient podcast. So I wish they were hearing this.
That's why I put it on my website too. I did put a video on there to announce to my patients the why, in case they wanted to. Because, initially they're like, why aren't you taking me anymore? Or why can't I come see you? I'm like, you absolutely can. This is just how our relationship has changed with the insurance. And it's because I'm tired of them making me the bad guy. I'm really tired of that. Like, I am a good guy, and I'm not going to take all these cuts and having Delta drop my fees even further and do all this bundling. Where do you think I should be losing money, like $17 for an exam? I don't have a single employee who makes that amount. Yeah. Everyone makes more than that.
Of course.
So to have them even in the room to chart with me, I already lost money on seeing you. So why do I want to run a business where I'm just here to serve you, but I have to pay you essentially to come in? That doesn't seem fair. And so I think most people do understand it. They're like, I had no idea it was going to be like that. And I'm like, oh, good. Because, I have to feed my child too. Like, I'm not looking to make money off you, but I'm also not going to pay you to do your extraction.
I love that. I'm paying you to come to the dentist.
Yeah, like that doesn't make sense to me. My saying that my team really laughs at, that I keep saying, is I'd rather just go sit at my desk and drink coffee
rather than paying you to come see me. That makes sense. What do you think because you now are out of network? How long now? Is it a year yet?
Yeah, it'll be a year in January.
Okay, so a year in January. What percentage of patients do you think have left the practice because of the out of network change? If you had to guess.
So it's been a little difficult to track because, like I said, I was watching Dental Intel and Practice by Numbers religiously. Is that patient attrition wheel is still, there's a lot of patients who haven't been in since COVID.
Yep.
And I know it's not Delta. And like I said, also, a lot of people who came back in and reactivated had left me in 2017, 2018. So now they're back. So there's going to be those that have aged and gone elsewhere, but it's still less than 5%.
Okay. So it's not a lot at all, because people are concerned with losing patients, but you're going to lose some, but you're going to gain others. Again, it's all about how much of a culture you build, is how you differentiate yourself and how you market yourself when you do that, and how you put yourself out there to let the people know that you're doing it, and the way you approach it, and the way you explain it as well. All those things are playing a role in how people react to when you do this type of thing. Same thing when since I sold my practice, how they are going to respond to the new associate being there.
Yeah.
When I tell them I'm not the owner anymore, they should not want to leave. I'm there, and they should want to meet her and stay. It's all about how you approach it and the verbiage you use. That's what it comes down to.
And you've had people on that are friends of mine who did boutique practices where they charged way higher fees than me and had the patient pay in full upfront and only wanted to focus on just cosmetic. I really enjoy doing procedures that are out of network, meaning I like doing implants. I like using my CEREC. I like doing airway stuff. I do fillings all the time.
Yeah, bread and butter dentistry. You still like the bread and butter dentistry. I mean, there's nothing
majority,
wrong with it.
yeah. But I just am freeing up the time for leaving longer blocks for someone who wants to do like the full mouth rehab I have like sitting in front of me. Like, you need to have the time to do good consults with people and follow up, and have the front that's committed to following up and getting them scheduled and getting the implants scheduled. All those things really coincide. So building the right team is a really important part. And seeing some of my friends' practices when they're like, well, how'd you go out of network? And I want to be like, you're tucked back in like a mini mall. You have your old equipment. Like, you got to have something. Because bread and butter, yes. Do I do it all day? Yes. That does not bring people into my practice.
No. Nope. Not at all. How many new patients do you think you get a month approximately? Do you have those numbers?
Last month I had 50.
50 new patients a month, guys, out of network. She's definitely doing something right.
And I told my front, because now I'm going to hire an associate, to turn up the dial a bit, because before we just didn't have the space for them. because I couldn't be doing a surgery. And then if there was an opening in hygiene for a new patient, I'm like, well, I can't do it then. I'm in a surgery. So try and put in SRPs there. So it took them understanding the Tetris of like where to put people. But if we hire an associate, we'll be able to plug them in. I would say we turned away quite a few more. I would be curious where it was at if I had another doctor here who could have seen them as well.
Wow, that's amazing numbers. 50 new patients a month out of network with a $1,500 marketing budget. It goes to what you got to create the culture. You got to create that team. You got to differentiate yourself. I will still go back to that. I know I wanted to go over the would you rather part, but we just spoke for 55 minutes, which is like 10 minutes.
Can do one.
You want me to do one? Okay, I'll do one. I'll do one. Okay. And it's a question I ask everybody, so I'll ask you the same thing. Would you rather use or give up? Okay. Would you rather give up search engines or give up your apps on your smartphone?
Oh, give up my apps.
You give up your apps.
Yeah, because the search engine, I'm using it all the time now.
It's a very interesting question people have, or a dilemma people have, because some people use apps all day long and don't use. I'm a Googler. I'm a Google. I Google everything. So I'd have to give up my apps because I use Google every single day for reasons. So.
Yeah, but it goes back to what you're saying with video content. I bought like some surgical big kit on eBay off Dental Garage Sale, like new from a resident who never used it. Guess where I learned how to use it? Freaking YouTube.
YouTube. Yep.
YouTube to do surgery.
Yep. YouTube is the second largest search engine out there. So
I'm like, Google. Oh, I can figure out how to set this up. Like, oh, let me look at this implant motor, like on this, and then now I'm using it and it's great, and you can add a lot to your procedure mix by, obviously you have to have the clinical basis.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not going to go. Takes a lot of clinical experience to get to that, but some of it I'm just like, oh yeah, I can do that.
If you had for the listeners and viewers, if you had like one parting thing to say to them, what would it be?
Drop fucking insurance.
There you go, guys. I think she said it all there, is that to create the practice of your dreams, get rid of those insurances. You'll live a happier and healthy, wealthier life. Let's put it that way.
Or even get rid of some.
Some insurance. Drop the worst insurances, especially if you're booked out 4 months and can't get patients in.
And don't be short-sighted. Be willing to look at yourself. Like, there's a lot of things I did wrong that now that I fixed it, the practice is thriving. But part of it is, if you're of that, I see these posts like, what's better, Medicaid or HMO to get my practice busier? And I'm like, yeah, like, why don't you learn a new skill set? Why don't you, like, when people are like, or we need to differentiate yourself. Like, I did Spear. I want to do COIS. I've done Spear, all of the workshops and stuff. Do you think that means I know it all now? No.
No, you're a consummate C. You're take C all the time. I see you on the road taking classes.
Yeah. I'm not like, oh, well, I just want to charge that so I can be different and get people in here or out of network. Like, no, you have to earn your stripes. It takes time and energy to learn how to present some of these things also. And I did like your workshop. So I do think people should learn how to take that with their team. Or I could give people the number of my coach that I use, who is, she's been fee for service for like 20 years. And she was great for inspiring the team.
Do you want to mention your coach's name, which is fine?
Her name's Stacy.
Okay.
And she works with people's practices are way more high-end than mine. And she's super comfortable at just teaching them the language. And she's so approachable that people start to see like, oh, I can be like her.
So guys, you just heard Nicole and I for 58 minutes now talk about lots of things related to our practice, going out of network, how to build a culture, how to differentiate yourself, way to do YouTube videos, the importance of a website, going out of network. There's tons of things we talked about. I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions for Nicole, and Nicole doesn't sell anything. So Nicole, if someone wants to reach out to you, how should they do it?
Oh, you can reach out to me on Facebook.
So just
I'm just Nicole
Facebook.
Vane. Yeah, Vane. And okay. Vane is V as in Victor, A-N-E. And my practice on my website is Moonlight Beach Dental. If you want to check it out, it has by category. You can pull up the videos and stuff like that. Or you can Facebook. A lot of people reach out to me through Facebook Messenger.
Okay. Well, this was terrific. I knew it was going to be a good one, which is why I was waiting to to find the right time to ask you to do this. But I appreciate, guys, if you like this episode, please share it. Please let your colleagues know. Please review the episode as well. That's helpful. If you want more information about the Art of the Sale or Art of Dental Financing, the 2 workshops I give over Zoom, please reach out to me. You can check out drlentau.com, my website, and you can email me or find me on Facebook as well. I'm uber responsive as well. But Nicole, thanks again for joining me. Until the next episode, we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.